My name is Bhavini McConnor. I'm the Campaigns and Projects Manager at Thomas Pocklington Trust, and welcome everyone to iCare and You Webinar 23. Today we'll be discussing all about navigation apps, whether they're relating to train, walking, buses, all sorts. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Jonathan and Graham, who will introduce themselves and start presenting.
Hello, everyone. My name's Jonathan Ward, and I'm the Development Manager in the Employment Team at Thomas Pocklington Trust. And tonight I'm joined by my colleague, Graham Page.
So I'm Graham Page, and I am the Technology Officer also in the Employment Team.
And it just, we've been asked by Bhavini tonight to come along and join you, and we're going to be talking broadly about technologies that help you get out and about. Okay, Graham and I are both registered blind. Graham has no useful vision. I have some, as I have a macular condition. We're both travellers, so we travel independently all over the UK and sometimes even further afield. So before we start talking about technology, I really wanted to just say that the best piece of technology probably ever invented for blind people is probably the white cane. And I know Bhavini's had sessions on the white cane previously, but it's really worth just remembering that actually you can still get mobility training from your local sensory team. I know sometimes there's a delay, but it's probably the best thing to do. And if you need to find out where your sensory team's located, you can just contact your local adult social care or use the RNIB site line. The white cane has been updated, so there are a couple of smart canes at least available. A couple of smart canes available at the moment in time. There's the Ultra cane and the WeWalk cane. So they do a little bit more than the cane. So they'll actually, as well as helping you detect things as you do with the cane, they'll scan ahead for you. And the WeWalk cane also comes with an app. Okay, so as we're talking about back to basics, we just wanted to talk a little bit about keeping safe. So when you're out and about, our priority is to make sure you are safe. So what we'd always do is say, if you're going to use any of the things that we are talking about tonight, try them in an area with which you are very familiar. So find a safe place, somewhere where there's not much traffic, where there's not much pedestrian pathway. If there are people walking past, maybe step in out of the side so you can actually use the technologies in safety. Go on a route that you are very, very familiar with. Okay. I'd also say that there's different ways. Once you start listening to things on your phone, you can become distracted because your hearing is so important when you're out and about. So we talk about things like bone conducting headphones. So there's a pair of headphones. I'm actually wearing some now, which sit behind my ears, and the sound goes through the bones in my head and allows me to hear what's around me. Okay, so it's something that's worth doing. So I'm wearing something called Open Move by or Shokz Open Move. So a Sony headphone by Sony, which are really good. But there are lots of cheap versions available. Okay, and Graham, do you just want to talk briefly about your sunglasses?
Yeah, I'm always trying things. The aim of all these headphones really is to keep your ears open while you're walking around, because clearly, as well as hearing your phone, you need to be able to hear traffic approaching, people approaching, and any other sounds. Even if you've got some vision, it can be very useful to have to be able to hear all the sounds. So there are various glasses available that have speakers in them on the arms of the glasses near where they near to where your ears are. They can pump sound into your ears. At the cheaper end, there are, I've tried various kinds of glasses from Amazon, including some that cost around £50 or £60. I'm wary about mentioning makes because there's new makes coming along all the time. I had some called Oho. I've also had some that were made by Razer, spelt RAZR. that generally produce gaming equipment, but spend a little bit more. And there are these Ray-Ban glasses that many people have heard of that have been reviewed quite widely, Ray-Ban Meta Ray-Ban glasses that you can pay 300 quid for. So, you know, there's a huge range. It's often a case of thinking what kind of earphone would be best for you, and it really gets quite subjective. It's hard to recommend a particular kind of headphone because really everyone's different. I know people that love aftershock type headphones, bone conducting headphones, but I know people that can't stand them.
Okay, right. So I'm going to just move on quickly, Graham, so that everyone's on the same page. I'm just going to whip through some terminology. So we talk about smartphone in 5 seconds. What's a smartphone, Graham?
So a smartphone is a phone that that has online capabilities and it has so it's a small computer. It's the easiest way of imagining it.
Smartwatch? Yeah,
so a smartwatch is a device that you wear. It connects to your phone, and it generally works. It generally works with the phone. Some of them work on their own and can actually be like mini phones themselves.
Android?
Often they work with the phone. So Android, when you consider these devices without a piece of software at the very heart of them, they'd just be a brick. So the software drives the computer or the watch. It's a little bit like the engine of a car. I wouldn't want to take the analogy too far, but
okay. And what
Apple and Android, smartphones can be Apple or Android pretty much.
Brilliant. And what's an app?
So an app is a piece of software that you put onto the phone that allows it to do a particular job. Some of them are built in. Some of them you download from either the Play Store for Google, which is Android, or the App Store, which is Apple.
And what's TalkBack?
So TalkBack is the thing that is what's called a screen reader, which makes a product talk. And that works on Android. And then the Apple equivalent is VoiceOver. And there's also magnification and zoom, isn't there? The magnifier on Android, zoom on the iPhone for people that can see, that increases the size of text.
Okay, brilliant. Siri?
So Siri, you can talk to your Apple phone, and the function that allows you to do this is called Siri. On the Android phone, it's pretty much, you can say it's called Google Assistant. Okay,
and Bixby?
Bixby is a Samsung equivalent of that, which isn't used that much, but it is still there.
Okay, and finally, GPS.
So GPS, geopositioning, I can never remember, geopositioning system, I think. It's the software that it's a system of satellites, and your phone uses different satellites to work out where you are. It effectively takes signals from them, knows where they are, and because the time that it takes for the signal to reach you differs slightly from one satellite to another, can use triangulation and other clever techniques to work out where you are.
Excellent. Right. So when we're out and about, sometimes all you need to know is exactly where you are. Graham mentioned Siri, which is the voice control. So simply by saying, this is where I start everyone's phone going. If I say, hey Siri, where am I? Then it will tell you where you are. It will work a little bit on Google. So again, depending on how you've got your phone set up, you can say, where am I? And again, on Bixby the same. But sometimes you get an excellent answer. What I would say is, if you're going to say, where am I? If you are standing on a street corner, it's better to walk away from the street corner, and you will get better information, because sometimes it can get confused by being on a street corner. So if you can walk about 10 meters away from a corner, then you can actually get to know the street name. So the advantage of that is that if you're ringing a cab or you want someone to come and find you, you can at least tell them which street you're standing in quite quickly and quite simply. Okay, and again, some of the more specialist phones that are out there that are specially designed for blind and partially sighted people, like the Synaptic, also have a similar feature. There is an app, if you want a precise location of where you are, it's called What Three Words. Now, What Three Words it identifies to where you are within, I think, 9 feet. I think you said, Graham,
Yeah,
to me
it
last week.
creates a square of 9 feet. Feet, because it's originally an American app. I think it's still feet here. So if you imagine the whole world split up into 9 feet squares, and you can use 3 words to differ. It uses a system, an algorithm to give each of those squares 3 words.
So what you might get if you're using what 3 words is something like, you might phone up, you might get something like dog pony trap or something, and then what would happen is that will be your exact precise location, which you can share with someone who's using the app, and someone can come and find you.
It's particularly useful when people are out and about in the open, when there aren't, if you were, say, on a mountain, if mountain climbing was your thing and you're out, there's no roads on Mount Everest, although that'd be an extreme place to use it.
But it does mean if you were walking the dog in the park or something and got a bit turned around and weren't quite sure where you are, by using what 3 words, you can get a precise location for someone to come and find you. So it's worth sort of investigating that for the purpose. Now, the other thing, what I also wanted to look at was just knowing what's around you. So when you're out and about, it's what's around me. So some things that you can try. So the first one is, for those of you with smartphones, you'll have some sort of video connectivity. So it might be I use Google Duo because I have a Google phone, but basically it's a video call. So you can just call a friend or family. FaceTime is the equivalent on Apple phones.
Oh, yeah.
And so you can just have a look. So you can hold your camera up and look around you, and whoever's on the other end can sort of tell you what you are looking at, and what's going on around you. So again, it's a useful tool. So if you're looking for something in particular, like the front of a shop or something, then again, you can use that with the aid of a friend just to look around you. There are some specialist services out there. So the first one, I'm guessing that most of you will have come across, or lots of you, with something called Be My Eyes. So again, Be My Eyes is probably the most popular app we've ever talked about, and that uses volunteers. And the volunteers, you can just dial a volunteer on the Be My Eyes app, and that volunteer will look around you and give you some feedback as to what's around you. If you want a paid for service, there's something called Aura, and then you can pay for this. And there is, for those of you living in the Thameslink sort of southeastern region, there is a trial going on some of the railway services at this moment, which you can probably find out a little bit more about, where Aura is available. So Aura is, you connect with your phone to a paid agent. Now they've got lots of clever technology, so they know precisely where you are. So they can see where you are. They can see how you're moving using the location on your phone. They can track you. So again, using your video input, they can actually guide you through a route. So we had a colleague. He used to use this app a lot. He used to come into central London, places he's never been before, no useful vision at all, and his long cane, and using the direction from the video and Aura, used to find his way around central London using his white cane. There are some other, if you just want a quick look around now, since over the last 6 months, things have changed a little bit, and you'll have heard people will have heard people talk about AI. So if you just want a quick look around, there are some now apps like Be My Eyes AI, Envision AI, and others, where you can actually take a picture with your camera, and then that will tell you what is around you. So you're not engaging with another person, you're engaging with a computer, and that will give you a snapshot. So some of the apps, like the Envision, you can now interrogate, and it will give you a direction. It'll say, which way do I have to walk to the seat? And it will actually sort of point you in that general direction of walking to a seat. Graham, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm just saying, I think if you haven't tried it already, you'll be, I think, quite surprised at the it's AIRA, it's AIRA. Yeah, I think that's correct. You heard someone asking in the chat there. The photos that Be My Eyes takes are really, and the descriptions of the photos that you give it are really quite detailed. And it can be really helpful for finding out what's near you if you can't find a person to help you.
there's also reading apps as well. So again, it's useful to think about the reading apps as an aid. So as you move around, if you want to read a piece of text. So again, where I use mine is and again, I'm sure most of you probably use Seeing AI, and other apps are available, like Google Lookout and others that do very similar things. So you have a text mode, which is like a quick instant text. So that will read things like documents, magazines and things. But for me, if I pitch up at somewhere and I'm not quite sure if it's the right building, again, I can point my Seeing AI at a sign if I know there's a sign above a door or to the right-hand side of the door. And again, you can get feedback, quite instant feedback, which is really quite useful. I would say that again, for reading, the apps we've just been talking about, like Be My Eyes AI and Envision AI. Again, for me, it is possible to take snapshots of train boards. We're going to talk about train apps and things in a minute, but you can take a snapshot and you can actually ask questions. So for the first time in my life, I was actually able to take a picture of a train board and ask it which was the first train to Dover. And that's which you can actually ask those questions of the train board, which, as long as you know which questions you want to ask.
It's also useful. I mean, this is an example of where you've got some vision. So you know where the train board, if you've got some vision, you know where the train board is, but you just don't have enough vision to read the train board, either due to its position or just due to the fact that the text isn't good enough or whatever. In this kind of position, you can use apps like Seeing AI or or even Be My Eyes to point at the train board, and then you can say what is the first train, or can you tell me the next 2 trains that are going to Folkestone, and it can be a real help.
So just to summarize, we just talked about where am I, what's around me, quickly reading. Now, I just want to talk a little bit more about sort of apps that help you actually get where you want to go. And then I'm going to ask Graham to give me an imaginary practical demonstration in a minute. So I've been playing with an app called Lazarillo, and that's available on both Apple and Android. And again, that will talk you through routes. It will help plan. So for those of you sat in a car and actually heard the sort of the GPS going on, this is a more specific app which gives you much tighter terminology at a very basic level. I sat in my office here the other day, and I just asked it what's around me, and it will actually just tell you what places of interest and things are all around you. So it told me where the local nearest restaurant was. It'll tell me that there's a school over the road from where I'm living. It will give you very basic information like that, but it will also allow you to do turn-by-turn navigation, and it's got a nice big visual arrow on it. There's others, like we talked earlier about the WeWalk cane, but there's also the WeWalk app, which is again I use to find my way across a park. So it picks up all the local parks and it gives you turn-by-turn navigation. And there's Good Maps, and I think Graham, you're a fan of Soundscape Vista.
Yeah. There are some time ago, Microsoft introduced a product called Soundscape. Now, this is only available on Apple devices, but Microsoft decided that they weren't going to fund it. Lazarillo's free, as is Soundscape on Apple devices, and you can once you install Soundscape, I should say that there are 2 versions of it and another. So what happened was that Microsoft stopped supporting it because it was only a research project, and a couple of people took the product over and kind of carried on from where Microsoft left off. The most actively developed version of the software is called Voice Vista, VoiceVista, and that has been regularly updated and developed. There's also something called Soundscape Community, and there's something called Soundscape Tech Army. Soundscape Tech Army, I mean, they tell us they're still developing it, but it has had the least work so far.
Right.
But
so Graham,
I'd say this. So what this does is it gives you can hear what's not only does it say what's around you on your left and right, but you use it with stereo headphones, and you can hear where the thing is as well. So something that's behind you and to your left will sound as though it's behind you and a bit to the left. So it gives you kind of an audio, an audio representation of where you are, as well as just reading what's around you. And it can be useful for, as you're wandering around, just to find out what roads are near you, what buildings are near you, what places of interest are near you. It can also track a point of interest, so you can tell it that, there is a map in there. You can tell it you want to get something 300 or 400 yards away or more, and it'll tell you, it'll tell you, it'll track it, and that article, it sets what's called an audio beacon. So as you approach the thing you're trying to find, then the sound becomes louder, and it changes direction. Obviously, when you're right there, it's in between your two ears. People tend to use this app in conjunction with other things such as Google Maps or Apple Maps, and it gives
Graham,
just gives you an audio.
I was just going to get you to do like a 1 minute route from so you're stepping outside your flat now, and you're just going to turn your apps on. How are you going to get to your chip shop?
Right. So what I'm going to basically do to get to the nearest chip is I'm going to put that into an app like Soundscape. I'm going to find it. I can certainly do it that way, and then it will track it. I can also put it into an app such as Lazarillo. I can put the point of interest into Lazarillo, and then it'll give me walking directions, while Soundscape is also telling me what's around me. And this is quite good for reassurance. So, Lazarillo might tell me about road. So Voice Vista might tell me about what's around me, what buildings I'm passing, what roads I'm passing. It's great for learning a route, because as you get to do it, you're told by Lazarillo which roads to take, and you're told by Soundscape what's around you. Now, the idea of having two apps running together might seem confusing, but generally they play quite nicely together. In answer to the question in the chat, Soundscape, Voice Vista is just Soundscape that someone else has taken on and developed. There are more features in Soundscape in Voice Vista than there are. I would say they're all free at the moment.
Okay.
So I think Voice Vista is probably the best one to run with.
Okay. And Graham, I was just going to say that these, we've talked a little bit about the specialist ones, but equally well, you can just say to Siri, give me walking directions, can't you?
Yeah, and bring those up in, I think, Apple Maps, yeah.
And you can follow it. I would say, for me, I used to do this a lot when I was walking around London. So just bring up, just say, give me walking directions to Nelson's Column, and then I follow it. The thing that I used to do with my voiceover was I used to make sure that was always checking the distance on the screen, so I wasn't walking further in the wrong direction. Yeah. Sorry, Graham.
Yeah, just saying, the other thing to keep in mind when you use apps like Apple Maps is that, yes, they'll say, walk 300 yards and turn left down Corporation Street. But, if you cross Addison Street and Smith Street on the way, Apple Maps and Google Maps isn't going to tell you about every road intersection. It's going to tell you about the roads you need to take. Where Soundscape comes in is it gives you those other roads that you cross in between and tells you what you're crossing. So it's just extra information.
Okay. Okay. And the other thing is that for those of you with a little bit more vision, then Google Maps, it does have pictures. So you can, if you want to rehearse your journey and you've got a large tablet or computer screen, you can bring things up and you can see a little bit more of what you're looking at and what you're going to come across, which is a useful navigation tool in it as well. I'm also going to move quickly on now. Graham, just going to touch on trains. We talked about trains earlier. So you want to talk about some of the key apps there for trains?
Yeah. I would just say we've had someone asking in the chat. So just to repeat, we will be circulating the the names of these apps because we know there's a lot.
Yeah.
So in terms of trains, I mean, there's various apps you could use. My favorite, I think, that the most accessible for me for train times is probably one called Railboard, RAILBOARD. It's quite accessible. You can look up trains with it. You can also buy tickets through it. They all make the money by charging you in some way, but this app charges what's called split tickets without going into it too much due to anomalies in the railway system. You can sometimes buy a journey and split it. Even if you're staying on the same train, you can split it into 2 tickets and end up getting it cheaper.
But the important thing is with these apps, so like Railboard, Trainline, and others, they will tell you the platform of your train.
Yeah.
So so you'll get that information, that real-time information as to what's going on
what
around
time
you.
your train's departing from. The bit that you might have problems with, and the ways of dealing with this are, really not quite there yet, although systems have been tried, is finding your way from the station to the platform. Now, there is an app called Passenger Assist that you can use to book assistance at stations, and I would recommend that. I mean, there are numbers that you can ring, and if you've been ringing someone and booking it that way, that's great. But there is also the Passenger Assist app, which is, as you'd hope, really quite accessible.
Okay, and it's just worth saying that if you are buying, so again, you've got this instant information about the trains, which platform it's from. The other thing is, as Graham said, you can get cheaper tickets sometimes this way, but also look at your local rail firm as well. So I've just learned fairly recently that Southeastern, my company, if I book through them, there is no booking charge. So just worth looking at some local apps as well. That brings us on to buses, Graham.
Yeah, so the thing about buses, there are a few national apps, but quite a lot of them are inaccessible. We're not in as ideal a position as we could be, but one app that works quite well is called Move It, and it splits the country up into regions. When you move from one region to another, it should tell you. It's not great for planning long journeys where you're going nationally, but for planning locally, it works. And also Google Maps actually has got, that can plan multi-mode transport journeys where you're using, say, bus, train, and even ferries if you're going to, say, the Isle of Wight or somewhere. Google Maps can be a bit cluttered, but it is still accessible. It does take a little bit of patience because it is quite cluttered, but that's the best option I've come across so far when you need multi-mode journeys.
Yeah. So for your local journey, what we would recommend is that you look for your local bus provider. For me, again, it's Stagecoach. So the Stagecoach app for me, and that will tell you which bus is coming, what stop it, where it is, what's approaching. And again, so these apps are going to vary from your provider across the country. So it's finding your local app if you want to know what's coming, what time the bus is coming, which, where it's going, how you can plan a journey. As Graham says, they're all slightly different. Graham, that brings us on to taxis again, slightly different.
Okay, so taxis. I tend to use Uber quite a lot because you can be anywhere in the country, and finding it's not out in the middle of nowhere. Uber, you can book an Uber journey. You can tell it where you are, where you're going, and it'll estimate the fare. The fares do vary according to time of day. There is a taxi card app for people who live in London that they're the only people in the country that benefit from the taxi card scheme. Last time I looked at that, it wasn't mega accessible, but it is a little while since I've looked at the app. I tend to just ring up and get those if I need those journeys. But for everyone else, for most people, really, Uber is the one that works really all over the UK. You may well find that your local taxi company has got an app. When I go and visit my mum in Derby, there's one called Albatross, for example, and I quite often use Albatross as well. So your local taxi fare may well be able to do this. And the advantages with that as well is that you can arrange paying your fare without having to have cash on you. Lots of taxi drivers have credit cards these days. You don't think you can specify, someone's asked about, can you specify you're blind on the Uber app? I don't believe you can, though I'm prepared to be proven wrong. What you can do, though, is when your driver's nearby, you'll be given your driver's number. So you can ring the driver and say you're blind and say where you are and, you know, get them to look out for you, etc.
Okay, right. We've sort of come to the end of the formal part of the presentation. I'm just going to say, where do I get extra help? So as Graham says, we'll make sure that there's plenty of information for Bavini to circulate. We've named the different apps. If you want to sort of have a look on YouTube, it's a great resource. I'd always recommend. I mean, it's an American website, but look at the Blind Life. Looks at lots of travel apps and things and reviews them. Goes through them, which is good. Henshaw's Knowledge Hub. Henshaw's is a good place, and there's some really good videos on that go along with the soundscape that Graham was describing. Obviously, there's the RNIB Technology for Life team. They're more than happy to take questions on this, and the RNIB website's got quite a lot of information on travel apps and different bits and pieces. It is evolving, it is changing, and Graham and I, if you want to give us a call, bring us up. Again, we'll make sure that the Pocklington number's out there. We don't mind if you bring us up and have a quick chat and ask us questions outside of the meeting. Okay, Bavini, I think that's the end of our sort of formal bit of the presentation.
Great, thank you. Thank you both so much. Lots of information to take away, and I'm sure there's many more. So we were talking about maybe doing a part 2. But just for this webinar, thank you both so much. And before we move on to questions that you may have for Graham and Jonathan, just sharing that our next iCare and You webinar will take place on the 14th of May at the same time. And it's going to be all about fraudulent emails, scams, telephone calls, how to identify someone at your door, and all things scam related. We're going to be joined by a police officer from the crime unit, so it's all about scams. So do join us for that. We will be sharing information with that along with the resources and the webinar recording to today's webinar.